What's going on, guys? This is Mekkah, and you're watching my Fire Emblem 8 100% growths low turn count playthrough of Ephraim's Route, also known as a board RNGod plays FE8. And today we're tackling Chapter 13, but before that, let's promote Ross. Finally, after all this work, we're going to turn him into a Berserker. It's going to be very important for this map. So important that I forgot to record the fact that I promoted him at first. I'm sorry, Ross, please forgive me, because I need you really badly for this one. He's uncapped all of his stats except for resistance. Resistance is just capped right away. I don't know if you've ever seen a capped resistance Ross, but if you haven't, enjoy, because you're probably not going to see it again. So yeah, Chapter 13 is a really big route map. I don't really like playing it casually. I think it's pretty boring that way, but as an LTC puzzle, I think it's interesting. The most intriguing part of it is probably trying to find ways to kill the enemies that will not suicide on you on enemy phase that easily. There's either enemies that just do not move at all but will attack you if you're right next to them. Those include the Knights and Selena, the Mage Knight boss that's in the middle. Selena has a bolting tome, so she will not let you counter her on enemy phase. You gotta actually get someone to her. And that's what we need Ross for, to walk right up to her and kill her. Side note, Ford's disappointingness never really ends, but in this case I managed to use it to my advantage to get a turn 1 mend. His only task for the rest of the map is killing these 2 fighters closest to him over the course of like 3 phases, so that's all he needs to do, and that's all he can really do. Anyway, back to the map in general. So we gotta get everyone as close as possible to the enemies that will not kill themselves if we don't hurry up towards them. Besides enemies that don't move, there's also some enemies that don't move right away unless you're in their attacking range, and those include a couple of Cavaliers in the bottom right. So that's where Vanessa is going with the help of Tethys, our newest dancer. Dancers are always really useful in LTC. It sucks for this one that in Ephraim routes Tethys joins so late, but you know, the moment the dancer joins, they're going to be useful for every turn. Same can't really be said for Garrick. He is more of a short-term unit. I'm only going to deploy him for like 2 more maps after this. But for this map, he's really instrumental. We promote him to Ranger right away. Mostly because one of the fighters that he has to kill in enemy phase has a hand axe and a halberd. And by promoting him to Ranger, the fighter will think that he can kill Garrick and attack him at 2 range. Or attack him at 1 range. And that way he will suicide. And that saves us 1 player phase attack that we can use for a different enemy, like the other hand axe fighter. That's why you can't go hero, and also I like having 7 move over 6. It sucks that he doesn't have 8 though, and that's an effect that his stats aren't as good as my actually raised units. It means that he's not going to be that useful for most of the game, but he is pretty good. And there's a couple of things he does need to do. Now the more observant of you might have noticed I actually have 2 Berserkers in my roster. One is Ross, the most important one, but I also have Dazla here. Now Dazla only has like 9 speed, so he doesn't double anything, so he's very bad to expose on enemy phase on a route map that you want to kill that you want to clear this quickly. But I do need him to get Kyle across the river together with Tana. And then there's also like 1 more enemy he's gonna kill. So I think it's pretty cool that I get to use Dazla on this one. Pretty much all the unorthodox ideas for this map are either from Horus or from Orisa. Mostly Horus. Horus defies most of the clear of this chapter. We went back and forth on it. At first, in my first run, this was a 3-turn clear. But then later on, it became a 2-turn clear. At first we were going to do it without getting barrier, but it turned out we really need the barrier to get Archer to A staves. Barrier is in the bottom left village. Cormac is going to visit it. But he also has to kill a bunch of enemies along the way. And for the purpose I actually equipped him with a 1-range weapon, the Killer Lance, instead of a 2-range weapon, despite the fact that he's facing Archer. Because he has trouble 1-rounding Cavaliers with a Javelin. He can 1-round some of the sword ones, but the Lance ones with higher HP defense are more difficult to get. And the Killer Lance also safeguards him against missing, because if he misses his first hit, he can at least crit with the second one. So it makes him a bit more accurate in that way. He doesn't actually need to crit anything, but it does help compensate for those misses. Now, the main problem with this map that I have is reliability overall. There's a lot of enemies that need to die both on turn 1 and turn 2 enemy phase. And, you know, some units are very accurate. Seth, Vanessa, and Franz don't really have trouble hitting, unless the enemy's on terrain or maybe has a weapon triangle advantage. But for example, Kyle, Ross, Garrick especially have accuracy issues. Garrick only has a steel blade, which has some hit issues if you're trying to hit someone with a lance, like the Cavaliers that he faces and the soldiers. Ross has to face a bunch of sword cavaliers with a hand axe, which is not a very good formula for success, even though Ross has very good skill and luck because of all the level ups that he's gotten. And Kyle also isn't the most accurate unit ever. Kyle has to get this shaman out of the way. These guys also don't move until Selena is dead. When Selena is dead, they will move and suicide towards you, so just gotta get that one guy out of the way so that Ross can occupy his spot and attack Selena with the hand axe. Tana has to kill this troubadour with a very conveniently placed Slimlance crit, but she does need that one level up that we got her last chapter in order to do so. We do get an energy ring as a reward though, that's pretty nice. That's gonna be for Archer to increase his warp range and make it easier to get kills with him once he's done getting to A stabs. But yeah, tricky chapter, more fun to plan than to play honestly. Playing it mostly came down to trying to get all these people to hit all the right targets. Once the plan was figured out, of course. Figuring out the plan was actually kind of fun. I wish it was possible to get the village. I forgot what's in it. I think it's a talisman. It doesn't make that much of a difference. I just don't really like leaving villages unturned. The Cavaliers at the bottom right, they're kind of hard to get to, but thankfully Vanessa was helped by Tethys. That also helped her drop Franz in the place where he is, and that let him take care of that Sambado Mercanturn one. That mercenary also has some issues moving unless someone is in his range, then he doesn't want to. So having Franz there was really important, and he also killed one of the stationary knights. So Tethys on her first turn did so many things, and the second turn is no worse. Cormac got the barrier from the village, dropped it in the convoy, so that Archer could take it out of the convoy, use it on Ephraim, and then Tethys can dance Archer and let him get 2 barriers in. And the great thing about barrier is that it gives more weapon EXP, 4 compared to 3, and you can also use it on units that don't have any damage, unlike the Men Staff. So it's almost as good as the Torch Staff, but the Torch only works in Fog of War maps, but it does give 5 weapon EXP, so if I can use Torch over barrier, I will. If that were possible. But barrier makes raising Archer so much easier. It's amazing. It's also good for Molder later on. I try to swap it between them when I have them both in the same place. But that's only going to happen for one chapter really. And after that chapter, it will be viable. But yeah, this is the enemy phase that I hate the most. Because everyone's got to hit like pretty much all of their hits. And especially Ross has trouble with this because he has to hit so many targets. And then near the end, there's a great knight with the hand axe that he also has to hit twice. And he needs to crit one of his hits. And enemy phase crits are, as I made clear in chapter 12, really hard to rig. And I remember one time it worked out. He actually finally got the crit. It took so long. But then Seth missed his target and I had to like redo the turn again. I was like, I've already been at this for so long. Damn. Cormac also has some accuracy issues. He doesn't have trouble surviving thanks to the Pure Water and the Dragon Shield, but sometimes he just misses with the Javelin. It just happens. He doesn't have an S rank in Lances, and his skill isn't amazing. This is the chapter where I really wish Cormac had a couple more levels under his belt. Ross can kind of compensate for missing the same way that Kill Lance Cormac could, but the crit bonus in this game is only 15%, so it's nothing to be relied upon. I think the worst accuracy in this map is like 60 to 70, but you know, individually a 60 to 70 or even 80 hit isn't that bad, but when you have to do it so many times, someone is bound to miss at some point. I was very happy when it finally worked out, so I could move on to the next map. Vanessa has no trouble with hitting at all. She's perfectly fine. Same for Franz. Seth had some issues with like the Killer Axe fighter sometimes, but nothing too bad. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up this map. Finished in 2 turns with the barrier. We needed to promote Cormac to do that, so very glad we saved the Elysian Whip after all. But yeah, 2 turns for chapter 13. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye!